Hi, I'm Eva, and I'm here to talk about everything in my knitting basket again. You can find me as The Charm of It on Ravelry, Instagram, YouTube, and my blog, which is thecharmofit.wordpress.com. And I love to hear from you, so feel free to get in touch. I'm most active on Instagram and then Ravelry. There's a group in case you want to join it and chat about knitting with us. Otherwise, messages, whatever. If you want to get in touch, I would love to hear from you. And I would like to thank returning viewers. If you have come back, thanks so much for wanting to spend some more time with me and catch up with my knitting. And if you're a new viewer, thanks for giving me a try. I really appreciate that people want to watch. It's kind of crazy to me. So yeah, other administrative stuff. This will be my last episode until January. I'm going out of town for Christmas and New Year's because all of my immediate family lives in Texas, so I go home for the holidays. And yeah, I'm not going to worry about podcasting and that kind of stuff while I'm in Texas. So I will be back in January talking about potential knitting dreams and hopes for 2016. This is Thistle, in case you're a new viewer. She is my dog. And she loves podcast time because she can just sit in my lap and be pet for 40 to 60 minutes. I also have a cat who might make an appearance. She's snacking on her lunch right now. Her name is Moth, so you might see her. You've seen her in other episodes if you're a returning viewer. And then I wanted to apologize for all of the background noise in last week's episode. I've closed the window this time, so hopefully that will fix that. I'm still getting used to using my regular camera instead of a computer, so that's why you'll notice transitions. It's because my regular camera only records in 8-minute segments. I'm drinking hot chocolate today. I used the recipe from Hunter Hammerson's blog, Violently Domestic, for hot chocolate paste, which is basically a way to make hot chocolate from scratch, all in one go, concentrated, and then each time you want a mug, you just heat up the milk or water and you throw in a spoonful or two of this paste, and it is really wonderful if, like me, I always do my hot chocolate from scratch. There's Moth. Because I prefer fair trade chocolate, and most hot chocolate mixes are not fair trade, so I just get the fair trade cocoa powder and do my own. But it saves a lot of hassle, and I would highly recommend it if you are also a hot chocolate fan, and I will link to that in my show notes. With all of that discussion, I suppose that we should actually talk about knitting. So, finished objects, right? Yes. First up, basically I've been doing Christmas knitting, so I finished that Oktoberfest beanie that I showed you last time. This is for my brother-in-law who loves beer. And it's out of Quince & Company Finch, which is their fingering weight yarn. And all I did was it's a free beer chart for the color work available on Ravelry. It's by Sander Jager, Jager. So you can always find things on my project page. So I did 1x1 rib with a tubular cast on. And then I did the color work, and then I just did a plain beanie. I followed Ann Budd's sizing suggestions for, the men's large, but then her regular hat, the decreases seemed like they'd be really sudden, so I kind of made up my own decreases. I ended up doing 8 decrease points, and just did that. So here it is on. It's a little slouchy on me, but my brother-in-law has a slightly bigger head, I think, so I think it'll fit him well. If he wants it to be a little shorter, then I'm more than happy to just re-knit the crown for him. And what's kind of fun is, since it's 1x1 rib, it's reversible, so if he wanted to hide the beer, he could. Since he lives in South Texas, that's why I did it out of fingering weight, because, he would overheat in a worsted weight hat most of the year down there. And it took less than a skein of the dark color, which is Sabine, Quince & Company's darkest gray heather. The orange for the beer is Fox, and then for the foam I used some Shetland, Jameson & Smith white so that it would look a little more foamy, because that yarn is woolen spun, so it's a little fluffier. Really pleased with how that turned out. I think it looks really nice, and I don't want to say not hand knitted, because hand knitted things can look really nice, but I think it looks, I don't know, it looks more mainstream. There we go. It looks mainstream to me, which is what I was going for. Finished up one more Christmas gift too. These are mittens that I made for one of my good friends who is a biologist, and he loves salamanders. So these are salamander mittens, and they're out of Cascade 220 and Two of the Heathers. The green is celery, and the orange is pumpkin spice, and salamanders are often orangey brown, so that's why I did that. The green was left over from a frog hat I knit him. And orange and green are two of his favorite colors, so not my colors, but I think he'll really like them. My favorite part of these mittens are the little lizard feet. Oh my goodness. Little baubles, and then you embroidered the toes later. Oh, I'm causing a crisis in my lab for the pets. And then the back side just has a fun little web thing, and the tail kind of continues around. As you can see, I've woven in all the ends except for the thumbs. So I'll do that quickly. There we go. For this pattern, I bought a pattern for lizard socks. That's what it's called, and it is by Lisa Stichway? I can't read my own writing. So it's a really cool pattern. It's for stranded lizards, and I really liked the shape of the lizards, and I think it would be really fun as socks too. I might have to make myself a pair. And I adapted it for mittens. I used Ann Bud's basic mittens for the sizing reference. And what I had to do is, because obviously socks are longer than mittens, so I ended up wrapping part of the tail around the back. And so I think I'm going to go in and duplicate stitch with a little bit of green just to make the tail look a little curvier here, because when I started it, I wasn't really sure how it would play out, so I decided to err on the side of a wider tail. So I knit the first one of these back in, I think, late October, and then my neck and shoulders were hurting too much for me to be able to read color work charts. So I set it aside, and then these friends, they're local friends, and we exchange our Christmas presents after I get back from Texas, so not until January. So I decided to do all of my Christmas Texas knitting first, and I finally finished all that, so then I was able to do the second mitten. So that means a good month and a half had passed, and I opened up my Ravelry project page, and I had written like no notes. All I wrote was, oh, this was fun, it was easy to adapt. I just used the small size socks. No, that's not actually true. I cast on fewer stitches and I changed some things around. And so it took me 9 tries to get the second mitten started. I almost went insane. Everything, it was so weird. I wasn't feeling that well anyway. But yeah, like every time I cast on, I was getting the wrong number, and then I was counting the cuffs so that I knew how many stitches I needed to have, and I like miscounted the cuff, and then, oh my gosh, it was just ridiculous. So I finally, on the 8th try, I had everything sorted, and I was about 9 rounds in, and then I realized that I had forgotten to mirror the lizard, so I had to rip that out, and finally the 9th try stuck. So I was very relieved to finish these, and I can't wait to give them to my friend. And when I start a new clip, I will talk about my final finished object, which you might have guessed. I meant to say, so the mittens have been a very good lesson to me that I need to take better notes. Oh my goodness. Or at least knit things right after each other. I don't usually have second sock or mitten syndrome, so usually I just cast on right away, so it's still in my short-term memory, but man, kind of ridiculous. Good thing it was a gift. I think if it had been for me, I would have been like, okay, we just don't need a matching mitten. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that I really want to work on, right now I just end up doing mitten decreases the way I do toe decreases, but I like a nice round mitten, so I'm going to look into how to make rounder mitten tops. something to look forward to. So my final finished object is my thistledown sweater, which I am wearing. And hopefully you can see the cable pretty well. I always take photographs and post them on my blog, so you'll be able to see full body shots there. I can't really get up and stand in front of the camera. It would be too close. So this sweater is knit out of Blue Moon Fiber Arts Blueface Leicester, which is 100% regular Blueface Leicester in their PDX Rose City colorway, which is an absolutely beautiful pale pink with different tonal variations going through. This was my first time using this yarn, and I'm in love with it. I want Blueface Leicester everything, and I want hand-painted tonal everything now. It's created a bit of a monster. And the pattern is, I kind of mashed some things together. So the base of it is Alice Starmore's Elizabeth I sweater, which had this kind of shape with, it has a flared hem, and the hem detail and the nice wide neck, and then the triangle with the cable in it and the raglan shaping. That was all from that sweater. But I switched the cable for the thistle cable from her Margaret Tudor sweater, which is also, they're both in the same book, Tudor Roses, which I was able to get from my library. It's a beautiful book in case you have access to it. Oh my gosh. I want to knit like half the sweaters in there, and it's just, it's done. The production, the quality is amazing. It's super heavy, so not terribly fun to carry back and forth between the library. But yeah, it's definitely one that you should flip through if you have access to it. I tend to enjoy Alice Starmore, but this is the first pattern of hers that I've tried. Okay, so that was, the cable was from the other one, and then I changed the sleeves to be more fitted and out of the double moss or seed stitch, the one where you do 2 rows and then switch versus switching every row. And then I think it's double seed because it's knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl for 2 rows, and then purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. So I made the sleeves more fitted, and then I changed all the numbers because I was knitting it out of sport weight yarn and hers was out of fingering. And what else did I do? I did something else. Oh, I knit it in the round. The pattern is knit in pieces, and I'm not sure why because it's a raglan sweater. So, and I used Ann Budd's Handy Book of Sweaters for a little bit of reference on the raglan decreasing in the round. But, hey baby. But I ended up, it's such a wide neckline that I had a bunch more sleeve stitches than body stitches for the final decreases, so I kind of winged it, and I ended up doing decreasing on the sleeve portion every row and decreasing on the neck or the body side every other row. And I wasn't sure if it would work, but it did, so I was really excited about that. I haven't actually blocked the sleeves yet because I knit it, I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough yarn to do full length sleeves. So I knit the entire body first, and I just did a provisional cast on in a few rows of each sleeve so I could join and finish the yoke and everything. So I blocked the whole body once I had finished it. We don't need to lay on the cat thistle. And then I knit the sleeves down, and I finished the second sleeve on Thursday night, and I wanted to show it to you, so I knew it wouldn't dry in time, so haven't quite blocked those. But I had a really good time knitting this. It knit very, very quickly in about 3 weeks, which is not normal for me. I was on a new medicine, and it turned out that one of the side effects, sometimes it makes people a little manic, and so that happened to me, and so I was knitting far more than I usually do because I couldn't stay still. But you know, I got a sweater out of it, and now the dosage has been adjusted, so hopefully I will be back to my regular self. But yeah, so that's why this sweater got finished so quickly. And let's see, what else was I gonna say? Oh, so I wanted a cozy sweater that I could just pull on cold winter mornings when I don't want to think about what to wear and I need to get Thistle outside for her walk. And at first I was gonna make this looser so that it would go with skinny pants, jeans. But then I realized that on those kinds of winter mornings, I don't wear skinny jeans because they're very thin. Instead, I wear my vintage wool trousers, which are wide-legged. So I went ahead and did quite a bit of waist shaping. You'll be able to see it in the photos. So I ended up with only 1 inch of positive ease in the waist, so it's only an inch bigger than me. And so it tapers pretty dramatically, which I think is good for full pants and skirts. So I'm pretty excited about how that turned out. For the sleeves, since moss stitch is reversible, I wanted to be able to roll them up and everything without worrying about it. So for the cuffs, I did the same decorative band that's on the neckline that I can't show you because of my pets. So I did it twice, and I just folded it over and sewed it on the inside. So the sleeves are the same on both sides. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. So I really like that because when I'm doing chores like dishwashing, you need to be able to roll your sleeves up. As I was saying, I wasn't sure if I would have enough yarn to finish this, but I ended up with over 100 yards left over. So I think this sweater only took 800 yards, which really surprised me. I think that's partially because it's on the shorter side. I think the body's about 20 inches long, and it's on the smaller side. I think I have an inch of negative ease in the bust, so it's like 32 inches around at the bust, and then I think the hips are around 34, so it's pretty small, which I guess helped with the yardage. I don't know. I was surprised because the other pink sweater that I knit, the colorwork one, took far more yarn. So I think what it really comes down to is that I knit the colorwork one at a very dense gauge, the swans that I was showing you. And I knit this one at a much looser gauge, so I guess that's what took less yarn. It's also really comfortable for wearing. I wore it grocery shopping this morning, and I didn't overheat at all, which was really nice. So pretty much I am in love with this sweater. I can't wait to wear it frequently, and it's exactly the kind of cozy thing I wanted. It is too short for, low-rise trousers, but I have a lot of the higher-rise ones because I wear quite a few vintage bottoms. So my next jumper I want to make skinny jean compatible. So that'll be that the brown canopy fingering that I showed you last time in Stash Acquisition. And yeah, if you would like me to detail the process of how I adapted the sweater and how I did the math, if that would be helpful to you, I am more than happy to run through that. I'll probably do it as a little side episode because I know not everyone likes math, but it only took me maybe an hour to get everything sorted. And so yeah, sweater adaptation for sizing is easier than you would think. The shoulders can be tricky, and I'm fortunate because I have fairly broad shoulders and I'm fairly small busted. So I realized that my adaptations are a lot easier than some people's. All I need to do usually is change where the waist shaping is and how much of it there is, rather than do anything super dramatic. Although I do get sized out of some sweaters because some patterns only go down to a 35-inch bust, so there's that. But if you would like me to run through that math, I am more than happy to do it to show you that it's pretty simple. It's one of those things where it sounds complicated until you start actually doing it, and then it's quite easy. As I mentioned before, Amy Herzog's books are excellent, and she also does a website where you can just get a pattern made to your measurements and your gauge swatch. So it's $10, but if you really don't like math, that's worth it, right? And when I come back, I will answer a question and talk about works in progress. Okay. The pets are quite needy today because in my preparations for my upcoming trip, I've been running around and not had as much time to devote to their care and love, and we're off our usual weekend routine, so that's why they're pretty much stuck on top of me. You can't see Moth, but she's wedged quite firmly right here. So, okay. So the question this week is from Susan, who is Susan93940 on Ravelry, and I will talk about her more a bit later. But she had 2 quick questions. The first was how I do SSK decreases, because apparently there are lots of different methods. I didn't know that. So the way that I do it is, let's see if I can show you. Should have had this pre-thought out. Okay, So, where's my yarn? I slip 2 as if to knit. So 1, 2, and then I put the left needle in the front, and then I knit. So I'm knitting those 2 through the back. I don't know if that was at all useful, but that's how I do it. So I have noticed on the pointelle socks that my SSKs were not quite symmetrical with my knit 2 together, so maybe I will look into the other methods. Let me know if you have a preferred method. I didn't know there was more than one. And then her other question was, what yarns have I found that give a lot of stitch definition? And she talked about how nice my teal cardigan, how nicely those stitches show up. And that was in Quint's Turn, which is a fingering weight. So from what I've read of Clara Park's books, I think the higher the twist, the more stitch definition. So just look for a really bouncy yarn and then the more plies, so 3 or more plies, and that's what Turn is. So that would be my advice for finding a yarn with really crisp stitch definition. I enjoy the kind of gentler stitch definition you get from woolen spun yarns as well, or more loosely spun yarns. I pretty much like all yarn, but this one had pretty reasonable stitch definition, and it wasn't super tightly spun. So I like the gentler effect that it gives cables as well. Other than the Quince yarns, which are all very bouncy, Elsa Wool, which is Cormo, her yarns are very tight twist. And let's see, Cascade Heritage Silk, I noticed is a really tight twist as well. So those are probably the ones I've knit with that have the crispest stitch definition, but I haven't knit with that many yarns, so feel free to share your favorites for high stitch definition. And now I will talk about my works in progress. So since I already pulled this out, I am working on basically more Christmas stuff, but I'm almost done. The end is in sight. So for my niece, we're doing a few more little bunnies. She requested one in blue. I guess it'll go with her blue squirrel. And then I'm going to do 1 or 2 in the fuzzy black leftovers from the other stuffed animals I knit her. So that's the beginnings of one. It's a free pattern from Sarah Elizabeth Kellner. I think I've made 11 of them at this point, 12 if you count the little blue bunny. So we'll see. If I'm up for it, I'll knit, ideally I would knit 3 black ones, give 1 to my little neighbor who is 6 years old and a really sweet boy who brought me some cookies for Christmas. So as long as I can keep my stamina going, I'll do 1 for him and then 2 for my niece. But we'll see. I'm kind of knitted out at this point. I've got a little bit of burnout. For some reason, so I planned my Christmas list and it went perfectly well, but rather than just do Christmas knitting, I decided to do a lot of personal knitting as well. So I've been knitting way more than usual the past few weeks. And partly I think it was the medicine, but yeah, so I'm in need of just, taking it a bit more slowly with my knitting, I think. And then my sister, I'm actually going to knit her a sweater for Christmas, but I want her to be able to pick out the color herself. I'm thinking, and the design, I'm thinking she would really like a Hito Fude because she lives in Texas as well, and we went to the yarn store down there together, and they had this like really lacy, open, crocheted cardigan, and she was like, oh, can you knit me that? And I said no, because it's crocheted, obviously. And so I think she would really like the Hito Fude, and so what I did was I'm making her 2 little star ornaments to wrap up in the yarn that I will use for her sweater. Only I'll buy whatever color she wants. So this is the Knitted Star Ornament Pattern by Kirsten Hipsky. Wow. What's the point of me writing show notes if I can't read my own writing? Anyway, it's a free pattern on Ravelry. You can find in my project notes. So you knit 2, and then you seam them together. Hopefully that's in focus. So I knit all the pieces last night, and then I wanted to block them before I seamed them together. So what I did was This one is with the yarn held double, and then this one is with it on its own because I think things are cuter when they're in a little matching set. It's like the mom and baby thing, right? So both of them are knit out of Cosette, which is a yarn by Knit Crochet 2, I believe. It's a silk cotton blend. And I got some in this color, which is Midnight. It's kind of a very purpled navy. Nope, not going to focus. That's okay. So I got it from another Ravelry member, and I knit myself a pair of summer sleeves, as I call them. They're basically opera length sleeves, and I use them when it's hot and sunny out so that I can just get a little more sun protection for my arms. I really don't like tanning. So I can get a little more arm protection but still be wearing a super breezy top and not have to put a whole sweater on. So, and I had a bunch left over, but I really enjoyed knitting with that yarn. Most plant yarns are hard on my hands, but that one was fairly gentle, so I think I could do a whole cardigan out of it for my sister. And it comes in really nice soft shades, and she likes the softer colors too. So I think she'll be really excited, and she's really sensitive, so any kind of wool makes her itch. So I knit these so that she could feel the fabric and how nice and cozy it is, and so that she could have a couple ornaments. She does nice Christmas decorations, so this was a really interesting pattern. I did several techniques I hadn't done before, so basically, since it's free, I'll tell you. You start out knitting in the round, and you knit in the round until it's the right size, and then you knit each point flat. Come on, camera. I'm sorry, Thistle won't let me get up to get closer so that, there we go. Okay, so, oh, see, cranky terrier. Okay, so this part is knit in the round, and then you do increases that work out to 5 sections, and then you knit each section flat, decreasing to get to the point. And I found it I was quite skeptical when I first started doing it, but I really like the finished product. I would really love to do a little star garland for myself one of these days. You do end up with a ton of ends, but since you're seaming it together, it won't matter. So I'm going to put a little bit of polyfill in them so that they're kind of plump. And that's that work in progress. And then my final work in progress is my pair of caravanserai socks. So I finished the first one, and I finished this on, I think, Tuesday. But I didn't want to cast the second one on because I'm traveling soon, and I didn't want to have an almost finished sock and then, you know, not have much knitting to do. Come on, camera. So it's a twisted stitch pattern, and then it works down to just a stockinette foot. It's the Twisted Mockery pattern by, it's free on Ravelry, hang on. Oh, this one is by Lisa Stitchway. The lizard socks were by Betty Zach. Sorry about that confusion. I really like how it turned out, and I'm knitting these for the desert theme of the solid socks, which is their December theme. So I'm going to bring the second one with me to Texas and hopefully finish these up before New Year's and get them posted on the forum. So that's why I haven't cast on for the second one yet. I'll probably cast on for it. No, I'll probably wait until I get to Texas to cast on for it. Okay. So those are all my works in progress. Oh wait, I have one more, but it is not a knitting work in progress. So I will start another segment on my camera and talk to you about that, and then my topic this week, which is going to be travel knitting. Okay. So my final project, I pulled out a trusty old crochet hook, and I've been focusing on small things this week once I finished, you know, just because I know I'm going to be going out of town soon, and I don't like leaving things half finished, especially when a new year is about to start. I like things to be a little tidier than that. So I was knitting the little Christmas gifts, and I'm like, I want to be doing something for myself because I like personal knitting. And then I remembered that this was on my queue. So it is the Peter Pan collar, a free pattern by Emma Escott. and it's available on Ravelry. And I thought it would be a really nice way to use up the very last of my souvenir skein from my trip to New York City for my 29th birthday this past April, when I went to Pearl Soho. And this is their own yarn in the line weight, which is a single ply merino, heavy lace, light fingering. And I used it to knit a scarf, and then I used some of the leftovers for a little butterfly, and now I'm using the last of it for a collar. So, okay, so I don't crochet much anymore, even though I crocheted a lot when I was younger. It was my first entry into fiber arts. I crocheted quite all kinds of things, especially I enjoyed cotton thread, so I did a lot of Christmas ornaments, that kind of stuff, doilies. From when I was about 8 or 9 until I was 14 or 15, and then for a variety of reasons, I kind of got away from it, and nowadays I don't crochet much because not only do the kinds of things I like to make work better in knit fabric than crochet fabric, like socks, but also the way I crochet really aggravates my illnesses, I think, because I do this. So it's just better for me to mainly stick to knitting, but I really enjoy Peter Pan collars. I think it's a shame that they're associated these days with children, because if you look at like the 1920s, 30s, 40s, all the way up through the 50s, women would wear all kinds of different collars and they would trade them out, and it wasn't seen as juvenile. So round collars flatter my short neck and round face more than, you know, the traditional shirt collar would. And so it annoys me that Peter Pan collars have the association they do. That rant aside, I thought it would be fun to make a little lace one to wear over some of my t-shirts, and I liked the crochet options more than the knitting ones. So I'm using an F hook. The pattern calls for a G hook, but slightly heavier yarn, so that's why I went down a size. And everything was going well, and I was actually all the way almost to the end of the 5th round, which is the final one, and I ran out of yarn with 5 scallops left. So I've ripped back. I knew I was playing yarn chicken, and that's fine. And I'm debating various choices I have to finish it up with the yarn that I have left, because the final round is all solid. There's no laciness, and I really liked how that added. So I'm going to try a couple different things, because I definitely want it to be a little wider than it is right now. And I'm sure that I'll come to a good solution at the end. But yeah, so that was almost a finished object, but not quite. It's okay. It's really fun. Crochet fabric, I forgot how much more dense it is, but yeah, I really like this. I have a little bit of, I enjoy some primclothes, kind of Victorian governess kind of style, so I think this will fit well into my wardrobe. It's a way to keep using up all the yarn. So, okay, so for my topic this week, I apologize for how many times I said so last week, by the way. I need to work on that. Clearly, that's my filler word of choice. For my topic this week, I am going to talk a little bit about travel knitting. I don't travel too frequently, but I do go on the occasional trip. And for me, socks tend to be my preferred knitting because they're pretty portable and they're very fun and relaxing for me. And when I knit in public, I get more attention with socks. So if I'm going to knit in public, I like it to be kind of, you know, woohoo, knitting. So I found that socks tend to intrigue non-knitters the most and give them positive aspects. So for my April trip, I started my owlie socks on that trip, and I was actually knitting them during intermission at a couple operas I went to at the Met, and everyone got very curious about them, and we had a nice long chat about hand knit socks and that kind of thing. So that's always been my travel project. But when I'm going home for Christmas, that's not the same as regular travel, right? Because you're going home. So there's going to be a lot of sitting around and chatting, not so much sightseeing. So I'm a little torn. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the skein to do the second of my caravanserai socks, and then I'm going to bring a pair some self-striping sock yarn, so I can just do a plain vanilla pair, and that's probably what I'll knit at the airport too, because I don't want to have to be doing twisted stitches at the airport. And then I'm going to bring another skein of yarn for another pair of socks, just in case. I'm going to be gone for over 2 weeks, and my mom, sister, and I tend to just talk when we can, which leads to a lot of knitting time, so I don't want to err on the ridiculous side, but I also don't want to completely run out. Although there's a wonderful yarn store near my mom's house. So anyway, so I'm going to do basically 2.5 pairs of socks for yarn, and then I'm going to bring a skein of the Sportwoy worsted spun Elsa wool Cormo and make a pair of leg warmers as well. Clearly I like knitting in the round. And the pattern I'm going to use for that is Some Cloudy Day by Tiny Owl Knits. And it's mainly knit rounds with just a couple lace rounds here and there, so I think it'll work well with conversational knitting. So that's the other thing I'm doing. After I finish the caravanserai socks, my other socks will be the plain vanilla stripes, and then I'm bringing that brown variegated skein that I got from Knit Picks, and I'm going to do the zigzagular sock pattern, which is by Susie White, aka Prairie Girl Susie, and she designed it for variegated and self-striping yarn. So it's mainly simple stockinette, and then it's got a panel of cable going down one side. So I think that'll work really well for conversational knitting as well. And then just in case I end up with some alone time, I think I'm going to bring the Quince Piper and go ahead and buy that mustard seed shawl pattern and maybe pick up some beads at that local yarn store. So that will be my complicated knitting for if I need to kill some time by myself. And I think that'll be enough. So I'll be bringing about 1,400 yards worth of yarn for 2.5 weeks. Yeah, when I say it that way, clearly, that's more than enough. I don't need to keep stuffing things in. I prefer to pack quite lightly. I do carry-on only, and I like my backpack to weigh 10 pounds or less. And since I also bring my camera and stuff, I pack lightly. So, yeah, that will definitely be my plan. So I'm curious about what you do for travel knitting. I just tend to get along best with projects in the round, especially small ones. So that's why socks have worked really well for me. But I know that Elizabeth Zimmerman advocated shawls, and I think that's probably because lace weight yarn, is lighter weight. You get more yardage for the same amount of yarn. I just don't think I have the focus to do a lace weight shawl. Well, any lace shawl, Socks don't really involve much counting, so I guess that was a very short topic segment, but I think I've done more than enough other talking to make up for it. So the last thing is a little bit of stash enhancement, but I did not buy the yarn. It was presents, and I debated whether or not to talk about it. But I think it's really nice that the knitting community supports each other in all kinds of different ways. And so both of these presents were, just spontaneous gifts from other knitters. And so I think especially in the Christmas season, it's nice to celebrate their random acts of kindness. So that's the spirit with which I'm going to share it. And hopefully that's the spirit with which you will watch it. When I was answering questions, I mentioned that I would be talking about Susan again, and she sent me a skein of her favorite sock yarn to try, which I am really excited about. And it was so sweet of her to offer, because this is definitely the fanciest sock yarn I have ever had. So it is Mountain Colors hand-painted yarn, and it is their Barefoot base, which is 60% superwash wool, 25% mohair, and 15% nylon. There's 400 yards and 100 gram skein, so it's a heavier sock weight, somewhere in between fingering and sport. And this is the Osprey colorway, which is this absolutely beautiful dark tonal rainbow. My camera is being cranky, apparently. There we go. Isn't that beautiful? Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it when it arrived. And I like how the mohair adds a bit of fuzziness here. I can already tell that this is going to make super, super comfy winter socks, which will be nice because winter gets quite cold up here. I think winter has finally actually arrived. I was wearing my sweater and hat and gloves and everything at the grocery store today. I'm waiting for the bus. I was still definitely, I could feel that wind. So let's get that skinned back. So my plan is, since I want them to be super comfy winter socks, I think I'm going to knit them from the toe up so that I can make them as long as possible, and I might do contrasting heels and toes just to get a really nice long leg, so that they can hopefully go up above my snow boots. I can scrunch them down over my snow boots. So Susan has been super active in the forums, and I just thought it was so sweet of her to, in the spirit of Christmas, pass along one of her skeins to me. So thank you so much, Susan. And yeah, you will be seeing these socks definitely knit up in the next few months. And then, so Erin, who is Holland Matte Handmade, is her podcast, and I believe her Etsy store. And then she is Mama to Abigail on Ravelry and Instagram. So I thought she was sending me a Christmas card, but instead she sent me a whole package. As I mentioned, she has an Etsy store, so she makes project bags. And she sent me, whoops, I'm knocking everything out of my basket. She sent me a little project bag. It's so cute. I really like the contrast fabrics. And it's just the right size for a small project, so I'm sure I'll be using it on my trip. I don't use project bags much in my regular life, but with travel knitting, I definitely like to bag everything up in case of accident. So she did not only send me project bags, she also sent me Felici sock yarn. Last month, I think, when the new Felici colors showed up, she had mentioned on Instagram how excited she was. So I asked her a few questions about it since I hadn't tried it before. And so she just went ahead and sent me some to try out. So she sent me 2 skeins of the Baker Street colorway, which I love. It's blues and browns and grays and taupes. And the Felici is super, super soft. It's the softest sock yarn I've ever felt. And it's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. But I felt quite a few different superwash merino sock yarns, and none of them have been this soft. So this is going to be my airport knitting. When I fly home, I'm going to cast on the first of these, and I cannot wait for the finished socks. I knit my first pair of stripy socks, I think a month and a half ago, and I actually did the stripes, with 2 colors of yarn. And it has made me much more curious about self-striping yarn than I used to be. So that was very sweet of her to send me a little bit of a pre-Christmas gift. Is my focus off? Hopefully not. I don't know why my camera's being cranky today. Anyway, and she actually sent 2 project bags and 2 sock yarn amounts of Felici. So I am going to pass along the other half of her gift to you guys, but not until January because I leave really soon and I just don't have the time to coordinate a giveaway and get to the post office and all that good stuff. So it'll be like a post-Christmas pick-me-up, right? So look for the details of that next month. And yeah. So this week was a bit of a challenge for me. I mentioned the medicine was causing me strange side effects, and it all came to a head on Wednesday, which was not a very good day at all. And then Thursday I had both of those presents in the mail. I readjusted my cameras to hopefully get the focus better. As I was saying, Wednesday was not a very good day. And then to find both of those surprises in the mail on Thursday, or presents. Susan, I knew she was going to send me the yarn, but Erin, I didn't even know that. And I certainly didn't expect it to arrive that quickly. It was a nice pick-me-up. So I just wanted to say thank you, and that I will certainly be passing along some of the yarny random acts of kindness come January. And I believe that is everything I need to talk about for the podcast. Perhaps in January I'll do a wrap-up of my 2015 knitting, as well as talk about my 2016 plans. But for now, I have really enjoyed getting to know you guys over the past few weeks as I've been doing these episodes, and I look forward to another year of chatting about knitting with you. Once again, if you want to find me, I am the charm of it. Everywhere you could look, well, not everywhere. Instagram, Ravelry are the 2 major ones. And if you want to see photos of any of the projects, because I know I wasn't able to do as many up close things this week because I had 2 very needy pets on my lap. The link to the blog post that includes all those photos is always in the show notes. And I always include the photos. I upload them to my Ravelry project page too, so you can find all the details there. And have a wonderful holiday, you guys, whether you're celebrating Christmas. I know Hanukkah has already passed, but New Year's, anything like that, just have a really good time. And I will see you guys in 2016. Bye.